Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Well, for 23 seasons, the man who directly succeeded Ted Williams in left field at Fenway Park, Carl Yastrzemski. Last night, for the first time ever, his grandson played in left field for the San Francisco Giants. And in his second time at the plate, he did this.
In this park alone, 3-1, Yastrzemski, it's a high drive center field. Jackie Bradley going back, looking up, it's gone! And you can only imagine what's going through the head of Mike Yastrzemski and his whole family. He has homered at Fenway Park, his 20th of his rookie year. And just about everybody who's standing up for Mike Yastrzemski. Wow. What a cool moment that is to straightaway center field. And his family is just going nuts.
And they should be. What a great moment. His grandfather, a Hall of Famer, one of the few in baseball history with 3,000 career hits and 400 home runs. Mike Yastrzemski, by the way, played here in State College a couple of years ago when he was with the Aberdeen Ironbirds. And then the Orioles got rid of him, but then they get rid of most guys that can actually play the game. All right, so with that, we bring in Donnie Collins, Scranton Times-Tribune. Donnie, welcome back. Great to have you with us.
How you doing, Steve? I have a great Mike Yastrzemski story if you want to hear it real quick.
Please. Oh, please. Because, I thought he was great to talk with a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he obviously came through AAA and played here in Scranton, and I do a little bit of covering of the baseball team here, as some people might know. But, it's like one of those old-time fans who's sitting in the front row every night, the season ticket holders in minor league baseball for the last 30 years. So he sits there, and Mike Yastrzemski walks by, and he goes, "Hey, Yastrzemski, you know, the Red Sox used to have a player by that name. He was pretty good." And I'm like, oh, he's going to ask him if he's his grandfather or not. But he didn't. He was just kind of trying to inform this guy that Carl Yastrzemski existed. And Mike was very nice about it, and he kind of just, yeah, that's my grandfather. It was. I thought about that last night when I read that he hit the home run.
Yeah, because his dad, because I think it's Mike Yastrzemski Jr., I believe. Yeah. His dad actually had a cup of coffee in the majors. Very briefly, I forget with who, but I know he was a professional player. But yeah, he was Mike Jr. is the first Yastrzemski. Carl. A lot of them played, but he's the first one since Carl to make it to the big league. Exactly right. So yeah, he is. And again, great kid, gets it. The difference is when you look at his jersey, you see Yastrzemski spelled in the back, and it takes up like a semicircle all the way around the number. Well, remember, when Yaz played, and the only time the Red Sox have names in the back of their jersey is when they're on the road. Well, when Yaz played, the Red Sox didn't have the name in the back of the jersey, period. So to see it spelled out on the back, going all the way around, it's like when Gerald Salto-Lamacchia was with the Red Sox, going all the way, just kept on going.
Yeah, the Giants have him. I think they have Samardzija also. So they have two of the longer names in the league. But I don't know if they have the names on all of their jerseys yet either. I think it's their road jersey.
At home, the Giants do not have names in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so 3-0, quarter pole of the regular season. What do you think so far, Donnie?
Yeah, not to give away the lead for my column tomorrow, which I'm literally doing by saying this, but Penn State is whatever you think they are right now. I mean, if you think they were if they were this young team that's building towards something big and going to show flashes of greatness, that's what they are.
if they're not ready quite for prime time, and you could want to nitpick some things they're not great at, then you could do that too. I think we've seen a lot of good and some not so good. They're very explosive, as everybody knows, but I think they're one of those teams on 3rd and 1 they can get you 40 yards, but they can't get you 1. So it's interesting to see what they've done so far in terms of explosive plays on offense, as opposed to being able to churn the clock out and put together a long drive. But defensively, they've statistically done very well, except they haven't gotten to the pass. So I think there's good and bad, but hey, they're 3-0, and when you're 3-0, the good has far outweighed the bad.
I mean, I know I've said, and I've talked to groups, and I've said, look, here's the talent line. It's up there between 90 and 100. I said, but here's the second line. It's the experience line. I said, the question to me is going to be, when do the two intersect? Now, obviously, they haven't intersected yet. Where are they lacking in experience, which is keeping those two lines from intersecting, in your opinion, right now?
I think it's everywhere. I really like it, to varying degrees. I think they left some points. They're the team that left points on the field against Pitt. I mean, let's face it, that game could have been 24-10, 31-10, something like that. Clifford, I thought he was a little jacked up. It was his first, real big rivalry atmosphere as a starter, and he overthrew I think it was Hamler was wide open on a play. They have to score there. He just overthrew him. I think there were some other plays where he missed. I think also the receiving core. James said there was the third down play at the end of the game against Pitt. Someone ran the wrong route. I mean, I have my opinion who it is, but I don't know for sure. But I think they've had some instances where the receivers didn't run the right route, and they've run themselves into some problems that way. But I think those are all things that can fix themselves. I mean, defensive ends have not figured out a way to get to the quarterback consistently, and I think some of that is experience at this point. But 2016 at this time, experience was not meeting potential, as we clearly saw. And then once it did it in the snap of a finger against Ohio State, and they were good to go to the Rose Bowl after that. So I think you have to give it time, and they have to weather the course and all that stuff. But I think right now they're good enough talent-wise to just outscore people, and they've been resilient enough to fall behind at halftime, go into the halftime tied, and then come out and make the adjustments and play well. But they just haven't been able to put together a full game, and I think the big reason for that is they're young.
This has been a program that has featured a dominant running back for years. This year it's been 4 guys so far. What have you thought of the 4?
Individually, I think they're all pretty good. I mean, I think the reason people like Noah Cain as much as they do is because that's the kind of guy they're used to having. Give him the ball. Even Franklin says it. Give him the ball. He's going to get hit after 3 and fall forward for 5. He's going to get hit after 4 and fall forward for 6. And that's every great running back Penn State's ever had. He'll break a few, but he's going to be able to move the sticks. He's going to put you in good third down situations. And I think Penn State fans identify with that. Devin Ford obviously broke the big run in the Idaho game, and last week it was Journey Brown. And I get the coaching staff's point. You can't leave those guys on the bench because they're going to break runs for you. They're going to break the occasional 60, 70, 80-yard run. That's just the type of back they are, and they'll get you a couple of yards here and there, but they're home run hitters, and you play home run hitters. So I really individually like those 3 backs, and if Ricky Slade could hold on to the ball, I think he's right there with them. He's definitely, to me, the best pass catcher out of the 3. So he's a very viable weapon as a dual threat guy back there. But to me, it's more it's not how much I like the guys, and I think they all could play to a certain level. It's finding the role that each of them fits best. I really thought 17-10, you got the ball, you're trying to get a couple of first downs and ice Pittsburgh. And Noah Cain's not out there. He's the guy that fits that style best. He's going to get you those couple of yards every time. Earlier in the game, you could roll the dice in Devin Ford and Journey and see if they see if they pop a big one when you need a big play in the running game. There's ways you could play them all. I think Penn State's still trying to figure that out, but certainly all four of them are elite talents, and we'll see going forward if the way they're used changes. But I think at the end of the games going forward, I think you're certainly going to see more of Noah Cain if they have the lead.
How have you felt about the play of the linebackers, Jan Johnson, Micah Parsons, and Cam Brown?
Yeah, I mean they're piling up the big numbers, and I think when they've needed them to rush the passer, they've all done a good job. I mean, Jan got to the quarterback against Pitt. Obviously, I think Cam Brown could get there, pretty consistently. He's shown that over the years, and Micah. He's gonna do what needs to be done. I thought he took the game over in the second half against Pitt. But there's going to be less teams on the schedule like Pitt and Buffalo who are just going to try to pound the ball at you, and in the running game. And then Pitt ended up having to throw 50 times, so that changed a little bit. But they're going to run into some more spread teams. I think that's really where you're going to see maybe not the numbers increase for the linebackers, but you're really going to see all their talent. I mean, I think they're really good against the pass. They're versatile on the blitz. I mean, they have two of those guys who definitely can get there consistently. So I think they're going to be exciting. I really believe that they've been better than I've expected so far this year, and I thought they'd be good. No, the first game aside, they didn't play long enough to pile up numbers, but the last two games, I thought they've been a real strength.
Well, it's only 3 games, but what have you thought of Jordan Stout?
I think he might be the best the best transfer portal player obtained by anybody in the country. Now, I get what I'm saying there. I get Jalen Hurts has put up great numbers, and Oklahoma's nowhere without him, and all that. But you have to understand, you got Jordan Stout for 3 more years, and last year, they threw freshmen out there, and it's probably to some degree not fair to evaluate Rafael Chega and Pinniger on being out there as true freshmen. They were thrown to the wolves, and we've seen Pinniger. Pinniger's been really, really good this year. I think he's made really, really big strides. But Stout changes everything for this team. You should never lose field position battles when you have Stout and Gilligan. You just shouldn't. He could really power the ball through the end zone every time if he wanted to. I think it's 25 out of 26 where he has, and the other one was fair caught the 2. But even beyond that, the fact that you can now kick a 50-yard field goal and have a legitimate chance to hit it changes your offense. I mean, I think it makes it more of a dangerous offense because now you have to defend a team that might run the ball on 3rd and 7 and put yourself in field goal range at a spot in the field where it wouldn't before. So I think it makes you have to defend more plays. And I think those 2 guys going forward as a tandem are really interesting to me. And it's funny because I remember years ago, and this was back when they had the scholarship restrictions and things, and Bill O'Brien kind of, pish-posh the idea of ever giving a scholarship to a kicker. But this is what happens when you give a scholarship to a kicker. Sometimes you get a great one, and I think Stout's great. And for 2 more years of him, I think to be able to get him off the scrap heap because he was going to get a scholarship at the school he was at is an unbelievable get for this team. I think that was very shrewd.
Well, I think there are a couple of elements here. Number one, let's talk about the defensive side of it. If you're Brent Pry, you pretty much can count on the fact that your defense's starting point is going to be the 25-yard line. I think that now helps in your planning right out of the gate as to how you want to attack things because you pretty much are assured of where your drive start's going to be.
Yeah.
The other part is offensively. You now know that if you get the ball to the 35-yard line, you've put yourself in a pretty good position to get points. Now it's a question of how many between 7 or 3.
Yeah, I mean they've changed the offensive side. They've changed from we're in realistic scoring range at the 23 to we're in realistic scoring range at the 35. It takes a first down away you have to get, and like you said on defense, it adds a first down or two that an opposing team has to get to score. And if you look at the numbers overall, I think total defense, Penn State's in the 40s or 50s. nationally with yards allowed per game, but they've only allowed, 30 points, something like that on the season.
30 points.
So I mean, teams are getting yards, and then once they get close, Penn State's stifling them. And the reason they're getting yards is because they have yards to gain. You could play a totally different style of defense in between the 30s if you wanted to, and Penn State's doing that because they can, because they know that you're not getting. I mean, how often has a team started at the 40 against Penn State this year? Once, twice? It's just right. Not a lot. And Stout's the main reason for that. And Gilligan too. He's been much improved this year now that he's healthy.
Good year.
But I think Stout is. I mean, you can argue Stout's the MVP of the team so far, and that's unbelievable.
I think it just has a lot to do with also neutralizing great athletes. Maurice French has 2 career touchdowns on kickoff returns. He didn't touch the ball. Rondale Moore's coming in here in 2 weeks. Stout's going to make sure Moore doesn't touch the ball.
Yeah. He's just going to put it through the end zone. Rondale Moore's never going to see the ball. He's going to see it on offense, but that takes 3-4 touches away from Rondale Moore on ideally. So I think it's I don't think I could overstate the weapon that Stout's been.
It's been incredible, and again, it's twofold. I mean, defensively, I think you feel good putting your team out at the 25, and offensively, you're right, Donnie. You now don't have to get that additional first down to get points. Now you're trying to get that additional first down to get 4 more points.
Mm-hmm.
Donnie, thanks so much. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna agree with you. He changes. Yeah, he changes third down calls and that part of the field too. You don't want to be one-dimensional on third downs. I mean, but on 3rd and 10, you could certainly run the ball and put it in the middle of the field or wherever Stout wants it. He changes everything.
Donnie, it's always a pleasure. Great to have you with us.
Thanks again, Steve.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times-Tribune, Joe Rutter from the Pittsburgh Tribune final half hour. We'll come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK. All right, great to be with you today. HBO is coming in here the week after the Maryland game. They're going to be on campus with Penn State leading up to the Purdue game on homecoming. And this is going to be part of their 24/7 college football series. It's going to be all access. And after Penn State, it's going to be Florida, Arizona State, and Washington State. It'll be narrated by Liv Schreiber. And what it'll do is it'll take you inside the preparation for the game against Purdue and the game with Purdue itself. And the show will air on Wednesday, October 9th at 10 p.m. So Wednesday, October 9th at 10 p.m. So it's all week with Penn State, the week of the Purdue game, homecoming. Meetings, practices, everything that leads up to the game, atmosphere in the parking lot, atmosphere in the stadium, and then the actual game itself with Purdue. So it's, in other words, a week in the life of Penn State football, essentially. Then they'll do Florida after that, along with Arizona State and Washington State after that. They wanted to spread it around. They wanted to get they ended up getting 2 Pac-12 schools, an SEC school, and a Big Ten school. It's a new initiative for them. I think this is terrific. Yeah, I think it's great. I think this is great for the fans. It's great for recruiting. And the recruiting part, it shows, what it's like to be around Penn State football for a week. So, I mean, that's great for recruiting. But I think it's great for the fans, too, because there's so many things, like, for example, that I see during the course of the week that none of you ever get a chance to really see. And when you're around it every day, it does give you a completely different perspective. And I always have to remind myself that, remember, you see this stuff and, quote, they don't. So I have to always remind myself when answering questions to make sure that the perspectives are from different points of view. One that's only seeing something on Saturday versus some reasons why things are or aren't working based on what you see during the course of the week. Well, now as a fan, we get to see some of this stuff. Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Joe Rutter, Pittsburgh Tribune, next on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Hey, come closer. Word has it Sunbury Motors is preparing for their biggest truck sale ever. Pick from Central PA's largest selection of new Ford trucks with savings up to $16,350 during Sunbury Motors' massive September truck and SUV sale. Over 45 2019 Ford Escapes starting at just $18,180. Four-wheel drive 2019 Ford EcoSports are slashed to as low as $17,320. SMC has up to $8,000 off 2019 Ford Edges and up to a whopping $13,000 off Ford Expeditions. All clearly marked with these huge discounts. Maybe you'd better pull over and write this down. The hot, all-new 2019 Ford Ranger has discounts up to $6,500. And Sunbury Motors has 2019 Ford F-150 Crew Cabs slashed to just $32,909. That's a lot of slashing. SMC is where you want to be right now for the largest truck and SUV sale in Sunbury Motors' 104-year history. Hurry while supplies last, but don't tell anyone.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Great to have you with us. It's been an interesting time for the Steelers. No Antonio Brown, no Le'Veon Bell, now no Ben Roethlisberger. Now you have Mason Rudolph. Now you have Minkah Fitzpatrick. So the person that we need to turn to sort all of this out and make complete sense of it is Joe Rutter from the Pittsburgh Tribune. Joe, welcome. Great to have you with us.
I've been good, and I was interested to hear that segment because I was actually in San Francisco when Barry Bonds hit his 600th home run.
Were you really?
Yeah, they played the Pirates. He hit it off Kip Wells, and I want to say August of 2002.
Yeah, wow. How about that? Jeez. I still ask the same question. How do you get to 600 so fast? All right, so all right. Let's get to the press conference. What was the overall tone of the press conference today?
The overall tone was, upbeat, and in fact, somebody asked, about the trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. Does that send a message to your team that you're not giving up on this season? And Mike Tomlin bristled with that and said, I don't need to send messages like that, but making trades. I think everybody knows, that we're still going ahead with this season, and he feels comfortable with Mason Rudolph under center, and he thinks the defense is going to be better with Minkah Fitzpatrick at free safety, and. They're just gonna keep going along and see if they can pull out a couple wins here.
A friend of mine who's a Steelers season ticket holder just saw the crawl, and it said Steelers give up first-round pick for Fitzpatrick. And he said they gave up a first-round pick for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Then when he was told it was Minkah Fitzpatrick, he was okay with it.
Yeah, the other one would not have been a wise decision.
No, it would not have. All right, so where do they feel Minkah Fitzpatrick can fit with them and upgrade them?
Well, for the short term now, he's going to play free safety. He moved around a lot with the Dolphins, and in fact, I think that led to some of his pleasure there, is that they were throwing him in as a 200-pound hybrid linebacker, and he didn't want to play that. And, Mike Tomlin acknowledged he can do a lot of things. He's very good as a slot corner, but they have a needed free safety now. Sean Davis is going to be out for at least 8 weeks with a shoulder injury, and, that Cam Kelly was not up to snuff there as the former AAF guy, thrown into play at free safety. So, this presents an immediate upgrade there. And Mike Tomlin acknowledged they'll move him around some as he gets comfortable. But right now they want him to learn that spot, and that's where he can best help this team.
And then they brought in Paxton Lynch for the practice squad. All right, yeah. So the thought process behind that, obviously at least he's played a little bit, but what's the thought process there?
The main thing was they wanted to find somebody that had NFL experience and was eligible to be on the practice squad. They didn't want to have to alter the 53-man roster anymore, and so that's why they didn't go out and get a more established guy, because they like what Devlin Hodges has done in his couple months with the team, and they think that he can, be the, short-term number 2. But, really the practice squad thing was the reason why Paxton Lynch was signed.
All right, so what do you think of Mason Rudolph? I mean, is this going to be for him a 14-game audition to prove that he can be the future guy or not?
Well, I think it has to be. I mean, he's got this chance here to, make the plays and show that he's the guy. And, there's a lot of injury protection on Ben Roethlisberger's contract, but, he'll be 38 next year. And if Mason Rudolph really steps up and takes control of this team, then you've got a big issue heading into next year and how you're going to do it. And I think, he definitely has a chance here to solidify himself as an NFL quarterback and the future leader of this team.
All right, so let's get to a couple of areas. When you look at the overall play of the Steelers so far, you got a 2-game, it's not a big sample size, but a 2-game sample size to work with here. What actually has been good for the Steelers so far?
The kicking game, surprisingly, after last year, Chris Boswell has come back strong, hasn't missed a kick. I mean, that's one of the few areas they haven't been able to run the ball. The receivers haven't been able to get open very much. Now you're going to backup quarterback, and the defense really has not. They've produced a couple turnovers, which is a positive, against Seattle, but then they couldn't get off the field and make stops when they needed to, and they're giving up. They've given up back-to-back, over 400 yards of offense and 300 yards passing. So you can't say that's a positive. There really isn't much right now, except for, I would say, Chris Boswell.
Why has the offensive line struggled?
I was asked this the other day, and the thing, the one thing I can come up, two things. One is that they're getting older. They're having one of the older offensive lines in the league with, Ramon Foster there. Pouncey's, I think, 30 or close to it. Villanueva, I believe, is close to it. And DeCastro is probably close to it as well. And they also didn't get a lot of work together in the preseason. DeCastro and Pouncey only played 20 snaps each, I believe, in one game. Villanueva and who am I missing here? Foster played, I think, 50 snaps over 2 games. So they didn't get a ton of work, and that, coupled with the running game getting off to a slow start, it just kind of backed them up. And, I think it's something that can get better. But now teams are going to be gearing up for the run because, they figure they can stop the pass.
Devin Bush has obviously played a couple of games back-to-back, so now you've had a chance to see him in regular season action. What are his pluses and minuses so far?
I mean, he provides the speed. He can get sideline to sideline. He's not afraid to get his nose in there and make tackles. They've negatives are they've attempted some passes over his head for completions. He had the big fumble recovery there. But, it was interesting that, until Vince Williams got hurt, probably I think it was in the first quarter, that Devin Bush had not been on the field for one snap. So I don't know what their plan was in that regards, but it looked like Vince Williams was going to be out there more because Vince Williams had the dot in his helmet to relay the defensive signals. And then, I think Mark Barron took that over afterwards. So I think they were, they maybe were trying to ease back Devin Bush's playing time a little bit, but after that injury, he had to pretty much be a full go from there on out. But, I think, he's adjusting and you're going to have these growing pains, but I think overall he's going to be a pretty good player.
Yeah, I think T.J. Watt had the dot on him at one point too, didn't he? He might have.
But he had it in the first game.
Yeah, first game.
They switched it to Vince Williams.
Right. So, okay, the way the league is designed, and I'm not telling you anything, Joe. You know this better than I would. The way the league is designed, you're not supposed to have a 15-year run where you're at least in the neighborhood all the time. It's not the way the league is designed. So, in some ways, has it been amazing that it's taken this long for the Steelers to be in this spot?
Yeah, when you look at it with, especially with the, having a quarterback who'd been relatively healthy for that period of time. Yeah, they've been fortunate in that regards, and a few teams have done that, and then you look at New England and throw that one level higher than them, and it's more amazing what they've done. But yeah, it's hard to stay consistent year in and year out, and they've been able to do it. And it's definitely an uphill task here the rest of this season, but they're obviously not throwing the towel in, and especially by trading away a first-round draft pick. They don't want to trade away, a top 10 pick. They want to win some games so that Miami's getting a pick maybe in the 20s.
Right. No, exactly right. And that's how you'd like to see it work for them to this point. But, I mean, in the division, Cleveland beat the Jets last night. I suppose in the league standings that counts, right, Joe?
Yeah, just like whenever you play Miami and get the win there, too.
Yeah, exactly right. Sean Davis going on IR. I know that we talked about Fitzpatrick coming in, but what does the Davis loss mean?
Well, I don't think it's going to mean that much because he was okay last year in his first year playing free safety, but he had been hurt for, he'd been in and out a lot from OTAs, training camp, to the preseason. He hadn't been able to stay healthy, so I don't think it's that big of a loss because I don't think we've ever really truly seen what he can do, and he'll be a free agent next year, so they're not going to bring him back now unless they were able to re-sign him for a one-year low-cost deal. But, there's he's not going to get the big money he thought he might get, and they never seriously entertained extending him before the start of the season. So, I don't think it's a huge loss because he just hasn't been able to stay on the field.
Right. No, exactly. All right. Mason Rudolph, in this, look, there's a lot of preseason stuff in there. But to this point, what do you think he has done well when you've seen him, especially in preseason, and where has he been lacking to this point?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't seen a ton of him yet to make that determination, but I would say, he hasn't been rattled. He's kind of kept his poise and composure. But I imagine where his weakness is going to be is being maybe confused by some intricate defenses. Yeah. Maybe being thrown some things he hasn't seen before. But he seems to have confidence. He played okay. He got a couple touchdown passes against Seattle. But again, like Devin Bush, he's probably going to be going through his share of growing pains as well as a rookie. I don't think anybody should expect him to go 13-0 like Ben Roethlisberger did when he was thrust into it.
Yeah, they got 4 in a row coming up, and then they get the bye week. And then, actually, they get 2 because they get the Dolphins after that. But sorry, did I say that? But they've got the 49ers on the road. What's been the general read on the Niners, who are obviously off to a decent start?
Be able to put up points, although, I guess anybody in Cincinnati can put up points. But, good offense, George Kittle, Jimmy Garoppolo. They're off to a hot start. I don't know much about them per se, but I do know the Steelers always have trouble going out to the West Coast. And I even asked Mike Tomlin that today. Are they going to make any changes? And he said, no, really, they're just going to try to treat it like running everything on East Coast time, which I think they might have done before, but, they're not going to change anything up. And, that doesn't bode well for them because, like I said, even back in Oakland last year, everybody thought that was a gimme, and they couldn't win that one either. So they very well could be 0-3 when they come back here. They do have Cincinnati the week after, so that's a positive. But they're facing a pretty big hole this week.
One final question, Joe, and then I'll let you go. We all know Le'Veon Bell's now with the Jets. We know that Antonio Brown is now with the Patriots. In the end, even though 2 extremely talented players have left that could have helped a young quarterback, are the Steelers still better off without them?
They're better off without the headaches in the locker room. Yeah. On the field, I don't know. You look at the receivers not getting the separation now. You look at James Conner being teams gearing up to stop him. They've got to maybe get some more of Jalen Samuels, Benny Snow in there to kind of mix things up. But, I can't say they're a better team offensively, but I think for the overall cohesion of the group and trying to build on what they have, they may be better off in the long run, but that's not going to help them win games in 2018. Yeah,
because with a young quarterback, that's one thing about Bell and Brown. They're 2 guys that can take ordinary plays and make them spectacular. A lot of guys can't do that, and you're right. So on the field. Off the field, there's got to be peace on earth. Off the field. Hey, Joe, thanks so much. Appreciate your time very much as always.
Anytime.
All right, great to have you with us on the show today. And, there's one thing I want to get into quickly. I think Sean brought up something that I think all of us knew about, and then you hear it articulated, and you're like, holy mackerel. This is week 5 of the high school football season coming up. which means when Friday night is over with and Sean puts a bow on the Friday night for everybody on game night, we are now halfway. Well, it also means we're halfway on September 20th. I think all of us understand that with the playoffs, they're trying to accommodate everything in order to fit the playoff format. When the playoff came out years ago, I was completely for it. I was definitely one of the individuals that was like, oh, yeah, let's have a playoff, the whole thing. But then, to me, they lost control of it. And I tell the story about George Landis, and I think he was coaching Central Dauphin. And Jack and I ran into George. Well, George came over to see us at a tailgate. And he's a great guy to talk to. And Jack said, so where are you now with the playoffs and so forth? And this is, I don't know, 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. It's 2 years ago. And George says, well, he said, we still have to win 5 more games to win the state championship. I said, 5 more games? Hey, should your playoff run be 130-er games between a district and a state? And I think that's where they've lost control of it. And that's where I think that and I think, as Greg Wetzel said, and I brought this point up before myself, so this is not a foreign point. But when 8 teams make a classification, well, that means you have to play 3 games just to get the district title. I'm sorry. No. That makes no sense. Obviously, when I played back in the leather helmet days, we did have a 10-game season. And in that 10-game season, we started in September. We played Saturdays, by the way. We did not play Fridays. They do have lights now at our high school to play Friday night, but they didn't have lights back then. But we concluded our season, and there was no state playoff. We concluded our season on Thanksgiving morning at 10 a.m. against our crosstown rival. That was our, quote, Super Bowl. We talked about how they'd take all the bleachers and they'd ring the entire field and give it a, quote, bowl effect. But it was a big deal for us. But we ended our season on Thanksgiving, and it was plenty cold on Thanksgiving. I mean, I remember playing as a junior, and it was so cold the entire week. And we went out there, and the field was frozen. So in the first half, we played all wearing sneakers, and that didn't work. And then we shifted to our cleats in the second half, and at least we were able to at least dig in a little bit. I mean, so it was cold. And as a junior, it was a little bit warmer, a little bit. It was a little kind of rainy, a little bit rainy that day, that Thanksgiving day. But that's what we did, and I'm going to sense that here in the Valley, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I'm going to sense that there were a lot of high school seasons that ended on Thanksgiving with a rivalry game. For example, State College used to play Bellefonte on Thanksgiving Day back in the 60s and early 70s. Probably had the same thing in the Valley with certain matchups that were traditional on Thanksgiving. Now we're starting the third Friday in August. We're hitting September 20th when we're at the halfway mark of the regular season, which means by the time we're done, when we hit So what would that mean, Sean? That would mean Game 6 is the 27th. The 4th is Game 7. The 11th is Game 8. 18, 25. By October 25th, we're done?
Yep, long before Halloween.
I mean, at minimum, you should at least get one game in November. One game, I mean, at minimum, you should have one game in November. And then we start this arduous process of, I mean, before you even get to the state playoff, I mean, one classification, going to play 3 games to win a district title? Are you kidding me?
For my alma mater, Lock Haven, 35, 40 years ago, they would play 2 games in November.
Oh, no, I mean, in order to play on Thanksgiving, we started at mid-September and we ended up Thanksgiving morning. Game would be finished around noon, 12:30. I can remember Kevin and myself going home and having Thanksgiving dinner at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon with our parents after the game. And the season was over. We did not get a trophy, the school, I mean, they had the mayor's trophy, so the school got the trophy. That's nice. But as players, we didn't get anything except for the satisfaction of playing in the game and winning it. Didn't even think about going to a playoff. Oh, I wish, because that year we lost. We were 7-3 that year. We lost 3 games that year. We lost to the number 2 ranked team in the country in the state, the number 5 ranked team in the state, and the number 12 ranked team in the state. They're the only 3 teams we lost to. And I think we beat the number 15 team, something like that. But it's like, we didn't think about that other stuff. Now it's going to be, we got to have a whole
station
thing.
For news, weather, business, and CBS Sports Radio. News Radio 1070 WKOK Sunbury and on WKOK.com.